невеличким, як то кажуть, резюме. Будь ласка, Яна Анатоліївна Малихіна, доктор педагогічних наук, професор кафедри педагогіки, методики і менеджменту освіти Української інженерно-педагогічної академії. З нею разом буде працювати Суховерхова Олена Петрівна, вона викладач іноземної мови в загальноосвітній школі і аспірант другого року нашої кафедри і нашої академії. З нами ще є Тетяна Сергіївна Бондаренко, яка в принципі має зв'язок з нашими іноземними партнерами і нам допомагає встановити зв'язок нашої школи. Вона є активним учасником нашої школи, громадська організація школи адаптивного управління, і вона, значить, є зараз шеф-редактором нашого журналу. Поки ваш, як то кажуть, як там кажуть, слуга, да, значить, набере статей, таких, як треба, для того, щоб забрати журнал назад. Вона мені його не дає. Вона поки що стала шефом-редактором і дивиться, а я у неї радник. Значить, таким чином ми працюємо разом. І наша Тетяна Сергіївна молодцом, вона володіє мовою, вона їздить, виступає в зарубіжжі, і тому нам допомагає проводити нашу таку роботу, наші контакти. Будь ласка, Яна Анатольевна, вам надаю слово вашій команді. Будь ласка.
Дуже дякую.
Представляєте всіх сама.
Добре, добре. Дякую за представлення. Колеги, я всім бажаю плідної роботи, всіх рада бачити і сподіваюся, що зараз ми вже переходимо на іноземну мову, і я буду давати такі короткі ремарочки або підсумки робити на українській мові вже після того, як ми поспілкуємося з нашими іноземними колегами, якщо дозволите. Dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to greet you at this conference. We are here today to discuss some important issues concerning the main topic, the main theme of our conference. Let me introduce myself again. I am Yana Malikhina. I will be supervising the work in our section. I represent the Ukrainian Engineering and Pedagogical Academy, the Department of Pedagogy, Methodology and Management of Education. And now the floor is given to Volodymyr Streltsov from Poland, the professor of management department of Pomeranian Academy in Slapsk. Am I correct? I'm so sorry if I made some mistakes. He will inform us about digital instrument, digital assessment tools in e-learning system. This topic is very relevant and it could be useful and I hope fruitful for us. And you are welcome, Professor Vladimir Streltsov, please. Vladimir, I can't hear you, but maybe you can check your microphone. Can you hear me, Vladimir? Yes? Turn on your microphone, whereas we can't hear you. Maybe it's something wrong with your internet connection. No? Unfortunately, we see some problems with maybe we will wait.
Пані Яна, пан Владимир написав, що у нього буває перебої зі звуком у Zoom. Він може чуть-чуть пізніше, може щось поновиться. Це в Zoom, а він пише в Zoom проблеми. Саме...
Так, треба було так, як ми вирішили очередністю зробити, як ми з Єленою Петровною вирішили. Добре. Зараз ми тоді переходимо до португальського професора. Так, Тетяна Сергіївна? Добре. Now the floor is given to Luis Miguel Cardoso from Portugal, the professor of Polytechnic Institute of Portugal, Porto Alegre, who presents his report, Adaptive Learning Processes in Portuguese Universities during the COVID-19 pandemic. You are welcome, Professor.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues and dear friends. It's a great pleasure to be here. I would like to share with you some warm greetings from Portugal. Let me try and say this correctly. So, dobry den and vitaju ze Portugali. I don't know if I said this correctly, but my intention is from the heart. So, my dear friends, the topic that I'm addressing today is adaptive learning processes in Portuguese universities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, these learning processes and these difficulties are not only common to Portuguese universities, but are common worldwide. And I'm sure we all agree that COVID-19 brought us a lot of challenges. And first of all, the biggest challenge of all was to understand the new approaches to online system learning and to see how we could reconnect ourselves and our universities to the diversity of opportunities, mainly in teacher training. That is one of our main focus. So, of course, COVID-19 had a staggering impact on global education. I'm sharing with you some data from 2020. And of course, the scale of the impact is absolutely colossal. And we are still dealing with this impact in our system, in our Portuguese system, and in our European system as well. And we are facing again the COVID in the second wave and in the third wave. And of course, we are dealing again with the same problems. But now we are better prepared, I believe, to achieve a higher standard of qualification and a higher standard of quality in our teaching in our universities. What we learned so far and what we brought to our universities before the COVID-19 pandemics was a model of teaching that is mainly connected to what Tiziana Palmer in 2015 designed as learner-centered classroom and personalized instruction. Students as producers, they need to learn new technologies, they need to go global, they need to be smart and use smartphones, they need to go blog, to go digital, to collaborate, to use Twitter chats, to connect, to have project-based learning, to build positive digital footprint, and to innovate and keep learning. And all of this, of course, resulted in key ideas that we tried to bring with us during the COVID pandemic. And of course, we tried to understand how we could change all this in a practical way to undertake some modifications in our online systems. So, of course, COVID-19 brought us a question, and the question, first we have a statement from the COVID-19 pandemic, the future is now. And the question is, are we prepared? Unfortunately, we were not prepared for the COVID pandemic. No one was prepared. Of course, we had online courses. We had e-learning, we had b-learning, we had knowledge, we had technology, we had education and technology, we had platforms, we had different software, of course, but we truly weren't prepared to this huge and quick and swift transformation to an emergency remote system. Of course, another question was, are we truly getting enough money to these changes? And the answer is no, we are not. So let's face it, my dear friends and my dear colleagues, in 2018, we only spent $152 billion with technological expenditure on global education. And by 2025, we need to increase this 2.6% to 5.4% in order to recover from the pandemic and in order to give our universities 2 steps ahead in order to be at the same level that we were before the pandemic. And that is a great challenge, my friends. Another problem that we faced with this swift and very quick change before the COVID, during the COVID, and now after the first wave of COVID is, of course, are we prepared? And are we prepared worldwide? And again, the answer is no, we were not prepared worldwide. And let's take a look at a few numbers. Worldwide, we only have 50% of learners because 826 million people do not have a household computer, my friends. And this is the reality. So 706 million do not have household internet. 216 million do not have a household computer in sub-Saharan Africa, and so on, and so on, and so on. So this leads us to a thought that is truly of crucial importance. As we are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, technology truly gave us an opportunity to overcome this abyss that was spreading and that was putting us apart from our students. But not all of countries in the world were prepared for this jump into technology-based learning. So this is an effort that everyone must take. And of course, international organizations such as UNESCO gave us some hints and coordination and materials and good practices in order to share and to build some kind of a route, a common route to us all. About the COVID-19 mitigation strategies in higher education institutions. Of course, this is not only the Portuguese case. It's a case that is common to all universities, I truly believe. So what happened was that institutions of higher education, administrators and students and staff and faculty and public health officials promote and support mitigation strategies while paying special attention to individuals at increased risk and disproportionately affected population. So this leads us to implement mitigation strategies that prevent spread of SARS-CoV-2. And this leads to reduce exposure among students and staff and faculty. And this leads to reduce transmission within institutions of higher education and broader community. Of course, this connects to minimize COVID-19 associated morbidity and mortality and reduce burden on the healthcare system. And so we have these critical considerations that, again, I believe we face in Portugal, you, my friends, face in Ukraine, and we face a little bit all over our countries worldwide. So what we learned from the COVID is that we had more or less 4 phases during this process. Phase number 1 was a rapid transition to remote teaching and learning, and that was an emergency transition to remote teaching and learning. And that happened between February and March of 2020. Then we have phase 2, adding basics or re-adding basics, more or less between April and July. Then we had phase 3, we had extended transition during continued turmoil. And more or less this happened between August and December of last year. And now we have phase 4 in 2021 and beyond, because we have several questions about COVID-19, about the vaccines, about the vaccine process of all population, of all countries, and of course to have better health conditions worldwide. That is our major concern. So if phase 4 is the emerging of the so-called new normal. We are living in this awkward situation that we are euphemistically called the new normal, and we must adapt to it. So another challenge that COVID-19 brought us is that the key issues of the 21st century educator are changing. And we all knew that these characteristics were changing. But the pandemic brought us a couple of new challenges to deal with. Now the 21st century educator is, first of all, an adapter. This means that we have to be flexible. We have to be open to new solutions. We have to be looking forward to find new tools, new software, and new key thoughts to undertake greater and bigger steps in order to strengthen our universities to deal with all this. We have to be a very good communicator, not only in our classroom, but also in our virtual classroom. We have to be a learner, not only a teacher, but a learner. Of course, we are all learners and will be all learners. We are learners from the day we begin our path in life until our last day on earth. We are always learning. Then we must be visionary. So we must not focus on the problem now. We must look at the future. We must see ahead and look at our horizon and try to find solutions, not only for my country, not only for Ukraine, but solutions for all of Europe and the world as a whole. And the kind of leader that we need now is a visionary leader, a flexible leader. And each teacher and each one of us is, of course, a leader. And of course, we are also a role model. And if we are flexible, if we are good communicators, if we are learners, if we are visionary, then we are role models for our students. And students must be inspired by our experience and by our words. And that is very important. Then we must be an excellent collaborator with our colleagues, with our friends, with our colleagues in our universities, with our students, with the community, with the parents, with the families, with the educational system. We must all work together. And of course, we must be a risk taker. We must be a risk taker every day. Today, we go to our classroom and we think, of course, we have students that know technologies. Of course, we have students that are connected with different apparatus. Of course, we have students that are very close to ICT-based teaching and learning. But what UNESCO tells us, and UNESCO told us in 2017, my friends, is that we need well-informed, long-term policies and strategies and professional development and well-researched and innovative methodologies for educational technology to play a central role in building inclusive and sustainable knowledge societies. So this is an effort that requires networking between universities, community, and policymakers. And the COVID-19 crisis, of course, led us to meet some key documents, mainly from UNESCO. And looking at this one, COVID-19 crisis and curriculum, sustaining quality outcomes in the context of remote learning. This is from April of last year. We need special provisions to allow 4 key issues. First, learners, then teachers, then families, and then the education system. So this is not affecting the learners, the students. This is affecting the teachers because learners have to change. We have to change. Families must adapt themselves to this reality. And the education system as a whole in a country must also be prepared to face the COVID as a serious threat to education. And that is what COVID-19 lessons is all about. So are we really prepared to forget the traditional blackboard and substitute the traditional blackboard by our computers? And of course, we don't have enough computers, we don't have enough internet connection, and we don't have access to all of our students. And that must be solved by policymakers. When we are with that problem solved, then we can go ahead and go further with our efforts to build up better conditions in education and technology, of course. Another thing that we realize is that schools are truly connected and are truly connected by technology with families and community institutions and health and social protection agencies and employers and business, and of course, out-of-school programs. So we are all connected. We are all working together to solve the dilemmas that the COVID-19 brought us. And another thing that the COVID-19 brought us is to understand that we need to enhance our skills, some skills that we already were working on, and another group of skills. And these skills, these 21 skills, involve perseverance and empathy and emotional intelligence, solidarity, and critical thinking, that is most important, self-regulation, adaptability, communication, compassion, creativity, digital, and of course, resilience. And all these key skills lead us to the preparation of online teaching. And what we learn is that our lessons from the traditional point of view changed a lot, because from one day to another, we were on an emergency remote learning system. So we have here 4 key questions that we thought were solved, and COVID-19 led us to rethink them again. So how will you teach? Of course, we have the synchronous and the asynchronous models, but are we truly using the models that are adequate to our students in these days of the COVID-19? We have to pay attention to our students. There is a diversity of students. There is a diversity of situations. Not all of our students have computers. Not all of the families have computers. And when parents stay at home, computers must be shared between parents and the whole family, and kids that are in school and kids that are at university. So how will students engage? How will you communicate? And how will you assess learning? And assessment in this period is also a key issue. And we were used to some types of assessment, and now with online learning, or with this new language, emergency online remote learning, we had to bring up discussion forum between teachers to analyze what were the best solutions to access learning during this period. Of course, I could share a lot more of information, but I only give you 10 tips for virtual teaching and learning. So we also learned that this is a critical issue to our students, and we must overcome difficulties. For instance, encouraging fun, encouraging play, activity, communicating clearly and frequently, using feedback from families and students. This is vital. And empower learning with choices, set up or adjust school guidelines, ensure teaching well-being. Teachers must be prepared, but we must give teachers all the conditions needed so they can be good and effective teachers and believe in their actions. This is most important. And of course, we must consider student and family well-being, embrace the online community, keep our classes connected, and most of all, keep it simple. Of course, we could debate what are the most common strategies with online learning, and in this case, synchronous online discussions that were our main focus in our Portuguese universities. So, of course, we have some guidelines, some universal guidelines. We were truly connected with UNESCO guidelines, but if I could choose a key element, I would choose this. First of all, we must understand our students. We must clearly understand and we must clearly know the reality of each of our students. Does our student have a computer, first of all? Does our student have an internet connection? Does our student have a family, good stability for sharing computers when parents are at home? And with these three conditions, we can go ahead. If one of these conditions fails, then we must try to found different ways to reach to our students. We must create redundancy circuits, and that is very important. And that was a key lesson from all this period. And as a synthesis, I would like to emphasize these key points. First of all, we must teach, of course, differently, because our students are in a crisis. Family are in a crisis. This is not normal e-learning. This is e-learning during a crisis, and that changes everything. So second, we must engage students in multiple ways in order to capture their attention, especially because these are very difficult times. The third, we must re-examine your exams, our exams. Are my exams proper for this time or not? Fourth, focus on feedback. Is our feedback from our students positive? Is the feedback from students and parents positive? Is feedback from our colleagues at university positive? And provide engaging videos, be crystal clear, be human, be human. This is the most important quality during these very difficult times, to be human, my friends. Start with what you have, of course, make changes, adapt ourselves to new practices with a heart, not only with our minds, but also with our heart. That is very important. Be aware while you're there, provide targeted support and feedback, provide structure and rhythm, leverage the power of online discussions, and don't do it alone. That means work together, work with students, work with parents, work with community, work with colleagues. For instance, let us work together. So this forum is very important. So congratulations to the organizing committee of this forum, because it allows us to share our experiences and to learn from each other. And that is most important today. It is very important to exchange ideas and to share our knowledge between different countries and between different perspectives. I end this presentation by giving two advices. You can find very important roots of understanding e-learning in these troubled times in these reports from UNESCO. Guidance on active learning at home during educational disruption, and education in a post-COVID world, 9 ideas for public action. So these are documents that are very important and can truly help us. And by the words of Kathleen Chu, resilience, perseverance, courage, empathy, curiosity, leadership, and ethics are the pillars that help us cope with change. And we need all this to make the right changes. And of course, I also agree with this key thought by UNESCO. Learning never stops, education never stops, and COVID-19 must not be an obstacle. It is surely a challenge, a big challenge, a huge challenge, but it can't be an obstacle. And we can overcome all obstacles because education always comes first. And with this thought, I end my presentation, dear colleagues. I honestly say to you all that we are all connected, that we all need to change our ways of thinking. We must share experiences. We must share our good practices. So this forum is an excellent way of sharing all this. So thanks again for inviting me. It was a great pleasure, a huge pleasure to be here. Thank you. And let's see if I can read it well. So, дякую and гарного дня. Thank you, dear friends and colleagues.
Thank you, Professor Luis Miguel Cardoso, for sharing your thoughts. I completely agree with you because we have to be more flexible, more resourceful for our students, for ourselves, of course. And I think that you have a lot of fruitful ideas to cooperate together with our learners, and we will hope that it could be maybe our cooperation, it could be more fruitful and useful in the nearest future. Yes, during our educational process. And now I'm so sorry, but I forgot to present my co-host Елена Суховерхова in the beginning of my speech.